All right. Well, very good. So, if you guys are seeing the screen, I'll get started and we'll get moving here. So, how Kyle and John met, I just wanted to kind of paint our relationship real quick. When I showed this to Lee J, one of John's employees, he said, "Oh, we're going to have some kind of romantic story at the start of the webinar," and that is not the case. But John is somebody that I met. I was working with one of his brand launcher clients. Since then, I've worked with many of them. And I went out to Baltimore and met John in person, and since that time we've gotten to know each other quite well. And most of you listening to this call probably have seen John speak, or some way or another have been interactive with him. And I'm somebody that saw him up close and personal as well, and just have a ton of respect for what he does and his intelligence. You know, you're supposed to surround yourself with people smarter than you, so that is what I'm doing in the case of Goldman. And John reached out to me a little while ago and said, "Hey, why don't we do a webinar and kind of tailor it a little specifically to remodeling and construction-related parts?" And here we are, right, John?
You got it.
Okay. So.
Okay.
Very good. So I'm hearing.
For over there. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool, Brian. Well, I'm gonna get this thing all written up and get it posted for her to approve it. So.
Someone sent out a proposal while they're in the middle of listening to us. So I guess we're going to have to just mute them. Go ahead and Tyler.
It's not approved, but she's going to approve this all. There's no, I mean.
Okay. Hello, Kyle. Are you still with us?
Maybe that mute thing figured out. Yep, I'm here, and I think everyone else is muted. And we will unmute here in a little bit. Cool. All right, so what I want you guys to do, this is an interactive webinar. Here's the first thing I want you to do. If you could pull out a sheet of paper, or if you're taking notes, you can do it on there. And I want you to put 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to answer a couple of questions. So next to number 1, I want you to write the answer to this question. I would be doing a better job of marketing my remodeling or contracting business if only I was doing a better job of blank. I would be doing a better job of marketing my business if only I was doing a better job of blank. I want you guys to think about that, and then I will give you some hints in case those are needed. Perhaps it is differentiating your business. Perhaps it's follow-up. Perhaps
Speak up just a little bit, Kyle.
Yes. Perhaps it is follow-up. Perhaps, boy, if I had more time to devote to marketing, or if I had a plan, I would be doing a better job of marketing my business. So put an answer next to number 1. I would be doing a better job of marketing my business if only I was doing a better job of blank. That's next to number 1. Next to number 2, write the answer to this question. Living with this problem uncorrected over the last 12 months or for the next 12 months, living with this problem uncorrected has cost me blank, put the answer down, in revenue I will never see. Okay? So you kind of have to think about this for a second. You sit there and go, okay, looking at that problem in number 1, whether it's lack of differentiation, I'm competing on price, whatever it is, sit there and go, man, if I had that problem corrected, I would be doing this much more in revenue. So yes, it is a bit of a guesstimate, but I want you to put a number to it, if you would. All right. And then next to number 3, I want you to put this answer. So looking at the problem in number 1 and how much it's costing you in number 2, write this answer next to number 3. From 1 to 10, your priority to fix that problem. So next to number 1, you know, it's a problem, but it's really not influencing my business too much. To 10, if I don't fix this baby, I'm not going to be in business. I won't have to worry about it. So put a priority on it. And the next number 4, we will get the answer to number 4 at the very end of the webinar. So I do not want to know the answer to 2 or 3, but I would be curious, and if we dare to, DJ, if you would like to unmute everybody, I would like to hear a few of your guys' answers to what you put next to number 1. You'd be doing a better job of marketing your business if only you were doing a better job of blank. If we unmute it, I want to hear a few of those. Don't be shy, folks. Somebody want to share that? I think we're unmuted now.
And if you can't say it out loud, for whatever reason, just go ahead and put in your chat.
We got multitasking.
Custom build, it's Mike.
Lee J, we're going to have to mute it again, my man.
Hello?
Okay, so let's go on, because as we've done this before, there are certain things that we always see that come up. And let's talk about some of those things that we see that come up, Kyle.
Yeah, so a few of them, just to kind of get that conversation going. So differentiation. I'm always competing on price. There's nothing, I'm a commodity business. If I was doing a better job of describing my value and differentiating myself, boy, I'd be doing a better job in marketing business. If I was doing a better job of following up with prospects. If I was doing a better job of building up referral partners. Okay, so all these different things. And Lee J, can you mute the lines? And we'll leave them muted for a while here. And then we'll be good to go. Okay. All right, so and when I think of these things, we'll move on a little bit here, but here's what I see, and the conclusion I see, is that all those things that are problems in your marketing are not necessarily the problem. Really, they're symptoms of the problem. And the problem is one of three things. Number one, you don't have a marketing system. Number two, you have a marketing system, but you don't use it consistently enough to get the results you want. Or number three, you have a marketing system, but frankly, it stinks. It's not very good. Okay? So what we're going to talk about today, and John, I'm going to toss it over to you here in 1 second, is we're going to talk about some of the elements and some of the things that make up an effective marketing system and an effective way of marketing your business. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that. And Lee J, you can mute the lines 100%, and then we'll open them up a little bit later. Why don't you get into that, John? Go ahead with.
Yeah. So what we've found is that being either a contractor or in the construction business, there's some major challenges. But where it starts, where it all start. So this guy's name is Mike. So maybe you know Mike. So Mike was a kid who used to help his uncle, and his uncle had a construction business, and he did miscellaneous jobs, and he would get the materials, and he would clean up the job site, and it was kind of cool, and it was some pretty decent money, enough to go out and help them buy an old used Camaro. And as time went on, so Bob he got a job in the construction industry, and he worked for a local construction company, and that was kind of cool. And what he realized is he's working really hard. So now we've got another picture of him, and he's growing and he's doing things, and he decides, you know what? I'm sick of making someone else money. This is ridiculous. I'm working hard and I'm filling his bank account. And so he does what most guys do, was he starts his own business. Now, when he's got his own business, that's really cool. Because what happens when you have your own business? You start making some money. But then all that glory that you had, you work for a maniac. And what's that maniac? What's going on is that it's going great, but you're now too big and too small. Maybe you know what too big and too small is. Too big and too small means that you're too big to keep doing it the way you're doing it, but you're too small to get a real leverage. You're working for a maniac. You work morning, noon, and night, and it's very frustrating. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough money. And what you find is that you're managing your whole business out of your cell phone, and you realize you can't possibly do it all yourself. And you realize you're putting out fires all the time. You're trying to manage the billing. You're trying to manage your employees. You're doing some of the work yourself, and you're wearing a lot of hats. Who loves insurance? You're taking care of insurance, payroll, marketing. So you guys are perhaps something like this. And what happens is you realize this can't go on. So what you do is you go for some advice. Because any smart, so now if you go and you speak to your accountant or your advisor, whoever it is, and he says, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing it this way. You're going to burn out. And so you realize that you're going to have to do something. And what does he tell you to do? It's time to expand. It's time to hire somebody else. And you think about hiring someone else, making it even bigger. I could barely stand doing it myself. Now, what do you feel like? You feel like resistance. And so what's that look like? It's like a dog. It looks like someone trying to pull on a dog, and the dog's like, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. So your accountant or your advisor is saying, come on, you really got to do this. You have to hire someone else. So finally, you break down, and you think, well, there's no way for me to do it. I have an idea. I'm going to call my friend Jim. So you call, hey, Jim, let's have a beer together. you and Jim are sitting there talking, and you say, look, Jim, I have this opportunity. I got more business than I can handle, and we can do this thing, and it'll be great, and I think that you'll love it, and hey, you know, it's better than working for that guy that you're working for. So finally, Jim comes along, and now Jim becomes your best friend. But what happens that soon before you know it, you own a job, and what? And the job owns you. You now have what we call a glorified job. So with a glorified job, what's that mean? Glorified job is very frustrating. Maybe you know what that means, to have a glorified job. There's something we call a vicious cycle. Let me explain to you what the vicious cycle is. There are 3 parts of the vicious cycle. So let's take a look at the part 1. Part 1 is that you don't have enough money. How many of us are frustrated like this? We simply don't have enough cash. Things are not like they were 3 weeks, 3 months, and 3 years ago, right? And so you don't have enough money. When you don't have enough money, it takes us to step number 2. Step number 2 is that you can't hire and you can't invest in growth. Now, if you can't hire and invest in growth, you're really frustrated. So what happens now is you're stuck in that too big, too small. You're too big to manage things out of your cell phone, but you're too small to get real leverage. Everyone needs more help. But if you can't afford more help, you can't afford an estimator, if you can't afford that person, or you can't afford to do marketing or sales, you're in trouble. And when you can't do that, guess what happens? The next step is you don't have enough sales. And now you're in what we call the vicious cycle. If you don't have enough sales, what you have is you have a vicious cycle. So that brings us on to the next step, which is the question is, what is the quickest, cheapest way to break through this cycle? So that's the question that we're going to have to deal with. How are we going to break through the cycle? What we found that there are 23 tested counterintuitive construction growth strategies that we want to share them with you. Now, we can't share them all today, but we're going to share a bunch of them with you. Some of them you might have heard before. Some of them are going to be new. And if you held a gun to our head and said, what is the single most powerful one, Kyle, what's the single most powerful strategy? Where does it all start? Either you, Kyle, you just had a baby, right? How long has it been? 3 weeks or something? 2 weeks?
It actually has been 7 weeks. It feels like more like 7 months, but yes.
So if we said, tell us what is the most important thing, or we're going to take away that new baby, like Rumpelstiltskin, what are you going to tell us?
Well, first I'll beat you up. But second, I would say who. You know, step 1, who. So you know, John's definition. Who are your hungry fish? You know, who are, another way to put it, who are your ideal clients? Okay, we have 2 types of ideal clients. Number 1, we have the type of clients, right? So the clearer you get on who your hungry fish are, the people that really can use your services the most. Sometimes, in your guys' case, in the construction and remodeling world, it might be a type of project, right? It might be a type of project that you really excel at. Maybe you're a specialist in a certain field, in a certain type of project. But a lot of times, it's just the type of client that you work with. You know, what are their needs, fears, desires, expectations? You know, what exactly are they looking for? And we can talk a little more about that, but the one I wanted to focus on was the second type of hungry fish, which are referral sources. I feel like this is an area that you as remodelers and contractors and just business people in general overlook so often. I feel that it is extremely, extremely valuable and important, especially now more than ever, right? Nobody probably on this call has $1 million advertising budget. If you do, please let us know, because we definitely want to talk to you. But, right, nobody has that. So we need to be smarter, and we need to perhaps adjust some of our marketing focus on maybe a new strategy. So I'm going to talk about that here in a second. So the first one is why referral sources, and it's this endorser fish, right? People that already know, like, and trust you, people that are thrilled with the work you're doing, they're going to tell other people. And yes, we all know it, the old adage, you know, word of mouth is the best form of new business. And one thing that I like to talk about and I want to get through your guys' head is that we don't necessarily just want satisfied clients. We want thrilled clients, which means doing a lot of little things to wow them. We want them to say, you know, yeah, you know, the kitchen they did was great. You know, they did a really nice job with it. You know, they showed up on time. But what really blew us away was, you know, fill in the blank. Do your clients have something to say, but what really blew us away was fill in the blank, right? We need to wow them. We need to excite them. We need to give them a remarkable experience, not necessarily just a satisfied experience. So something we might talk about a little bit more when we get to nurturing and some of the other topics. But let me hit on this. So as an example, here's a builder, remodeler here in Michigan, actually, a client that John and I work with. And one thing he's done over the last, it's been about a year, is he sat there and went, you know what, so often in our industry, this relationship between architects and builders is this butting heads. You know, that dog you showed earlier, this resistance, right? Oh, they're just going to throw me under the bus and vice versa. And what he did is say, look, we're going to develop a 9-point architect promise. He started sending out some postcards. He started to give them some free and valuable free reports and information. Boy, what are some of the things he did? We sent out some warm and cozy blankets, which tie into his Fireside brand. We sent something out about Sarah Susanka. You know, you guys in the industry know Sarah Susanka, the Not So Big House. We started sending out some Sarah Susanka books, you know, and sending out postcards like that. And all of a sudden,
Kyle, here's the thing that's really unusual about this. When we did this with Fireside, so it was a matter of getting out of the head. Most of the time, people are, you see, there's this Aramaic saying that you guys might have heard me say it before, tafasta maruba lo tafasta. Tfastama tfasta, which means if you grab a lot, you don't get anything. If you grab a little bit, you get it. You have to slice and dice your message. The message to an end user is very different than the message to the architects here. So in your website, so we created an entire different portal in the guy's website just for the architects. And you see how there's 9-point architect promise, architect program benefits, architect testimonials. So in your website, what happens is you try to have one message. This one is worth writing down. Ready? You don't want to have one message to many people. You want to have different messages to different people. Not one message to many people, but different messages to different people. So in other words, identify some key different groups that you have, and then have different messages for them. And so this is what I saw that was so different, is it required, because what he was doing until we did this, Kyle, if you recall, he had one message that's like, well, Fireside is great, and here's all the advantages. But when he started speaking specifically to the architects, that made such a big difference, you know?
Yeah, and fast forward to the results, so there's about 130 architects that he's really targeted here. And if you talk to Bob right now, there's about 12 of them that he's developed good relationships with. And all he's simply done is said, hey, let's go out to lunch. Hey, let me treat you to lunch, or let me treat you to breakfast. And he said, you know, I have this 9-point architect promise. Here's what we do. Here's what we offer. Here's how we can help and assist you. And if you looked at Bob's pipeline of leads and actual work, the majority of it right now in this day and age, and this coming into 2012, are a result of this program. Okay, so we need to think not only of our hungry fish that are clients, but also referral sources. Who do you work with that also shares your same ideal client? So I want you to talk real briefly.
Hold on one second, Kyle.
Yeah.
Can you go backwards for just a second?
Yeah.
Go back one more. One more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, this graphic image is so powerful because, see, normally what people do is you see behind the endorser fish, there's like some small fish and some big fish. Maybe you could point to them. So with the small fish, those are like one customer. And then there's some bigger fish behind it. That's, again, selling to one customer. But when you find one referral source or one endorser, that can generate so much business for you. And most people don't take the time and the effort to redo it. Well, we relate to them in that way. And so everyone's like, run, 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 more, 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 more. It's not about more. You should identify 6 to 12 people and develop. There's a guy that wrote a book recently called The Power of 6. Only 6 people. Like, if you lost your whole database, who are the 6 people that you can use to build your entire life around? So that's one thing I want you to write down and think about. Who are 6 people that I can go after and develop a meaningful relationship with, people that have my customer base? And now, Kyle, you can move forward and talk about a strategy, how we can go about doing that.
Yeah. So Luxury Mastermind Group, I remember another client that John and I were working with, and it was just kind of in passing, John threw this idea out. And I remember talking to the client a week later, and he said, you know, you guys, we mentioned an idea kind of in passing, this Luxury Mastermind Group, and frankly, I lost a night of sleep thinking about it because it just made sense. So quickly, and John, I'm going to speed this up because I know what we have to cover, and I know and all that. But quickly, the idea here is, what if you were the kingpin that organized a simple mastermind group? So let's say, for example, you cater maybe towards a more higher-end client. And what if you reached out and networked and said, hey, I'm somebody that does remodeling work, and here's kind of the people I work with. And hey, Lexus dealer owner. Hey, high-end financial planner man. Hey, accountants. All these different folks that also work with your ideal client, the type of people you want to work with. And what if you said, hey, get about 8 or 10 of them together and said, let's do a mastermind. Let's just meet once a month. Maybe we'll bring in some experts to help us educate each other. Maybe we'll put each one of us in a hot seat once a month and just brainstorm what's going on in your business, what challenges are you having, and you have a bunch of other experienced people helping you along. And guess what happens as you develop this mastermind group? Referrals start to happen. John, you want to expand on this or maybe summarize it better than I did?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Most people are afraid to share. And if you are a person who is abundant and you're not afraid to share, you can be very, very successful. Now, it happens when you find people who have your type of clientele, you say to them simply, look, we have limited spots available for people that want to receive referrals. We're looking for someone that wants the luxury car spot. We're looking for someone that wants the insurance spot. We're looking for someone that wants the pool spot, because we have a lot of people that can send referrals your way. Oh, really? Yeah, but you know what? We're looking for people who can share and share abundantly. Now, when you are the organizer, everybody owes you, because the law of reciprocity is immutable, and people will feel the obligation to want to pay back to you. And because you'll be the one where it's happening now, you can either host it yourself or you can host it elsewhere. But it's such a beautiful concept, and it costs so little money, and it's part of that small group of people that you can invest in. Every time that we've seen this done, it generates such a good list of referrals on a regular basis that it pays for itself in spades, both in terms of time and money. And so the first thing I would do is I'd pick who is your ideal people that you want to network, and then just start with a group of anywhere from 6 to 12 people in your group. A minimum of 6 is going to be your threshold. 12, more than that, it's a little bit too much to have an intimate group. That's it.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on. So who has seen an increase in price pressure recently? Right? There's I think the answer to that is yes. I'm just going to move on, right? So, discounts. This isn't the way to prosper, right? Discounts equal, what does that equal, John?
That's heroin. The more people get addicted to lower and lower and lower and lower prices. Ultimately, if you live by the price sword, you know what happens? You die by the price sword. And so price is what you do when you run out of ideas. So discounting and pricing.
Repeat that, John. That deserves a little bit of emphasis.
Right. So discounting is what you do when you run out of ideas. People, I was just recently at Ben & Jerry's up in Vermont, and I had a meeting up there, and it's mind-blowing that people will spend $4.29 for a tiny little pint of ice cream. And by the way, that's the only size that they'll sell. And for a half gallon of ice cream, you could spend $2.38 for an entire half a gallon. So why are people paying more for less? Because they're in a competitive bubble, and not because of price, but rather because of something else. So what is that other thing? That other thing is about the story. So that's what we want to talk about next, is how do you develop that story?
So John, if I was to steal one of your children, what would you say is number 2?
Well, it depends which one. So step number 2, I'd say if we've got our hungry fish, you have to have a story that's going to resonate. And so what I want to do is take a look at good stories and bad stories and how to spot them. So here's an ad from a builder, and you recognize him.
Somebody registered for the call, so we were looking at some people's websites, and we said,
let's
pull this out, right?
Right, so Steve Hunt, I had a conversation with Steve, and he's in a little bit of a commodity market, but he has some really unusual things. So let's look at what you like and what you don't like about this.
So what are some things? So first what I like is Hunt, right? So my last name is Kyle Hunt. So obviously that looks very wonderful up top. The QR code, very interesting, right? If my hungry fish were folks that were into technology, maybe somehow I discovered through surveying, through really looking at my client list, our clients are really into technology. They seem to like electronics. They seem to like gizmos and gadgets. QR code makes a whole lot of sense. Also in the bottom corner, the Facebook and the YouTube. So there's a couple of things that catch my eye.
So what I heard you say is based on my hungry fish will depend on my CTA. Anyone know what a CTA is? If you know what a CTA is, put it in your put it in your chat if you know what a CTA is. A CTA is, oh, I think we just got an answer here. Right, a CTA is a call to action. So without a call to action, you might, it's like having someone walk into your store, walk around, and walk right out. Whatever you do, don't do that terrible question. You know what that terrible question is? The terrible question is, can I help you? And what does everyone say when they say, can I help you? No thanks, just looking. So all of your advertisements have to have a call to action, as long as you're trying to do that. So in this case, you got a QR code, which has a call to action. You've got the Facebook, and you have the YouTube there, which is a bit of a call to action. Now you also have a map here. So very quickly, I'll tell you that Yale University wanted to do an experiment, do emotions help. And so they were trying to give away free tetanus shots. Free tetanus shots. And if they got a 3% response rate to the students by saying, come on in and get your free tetanus shot. They changed one thing and they got a 28% response. They used emotions before, but they didn't do this one little trick. And what was that trick? They put in a map. And they said, when you're now, here's where the student health clinic is. And so they showed on a map so a person can think where it is. So I want you to think not just like, oh, should I put a map or not? Think about how do we put this in the context of another person's life. Can you see yourself can you see yourself in a home? And so in this way, it shows you physically where it is on a map, and that way it's helpful. What else do you see, Kyle? What do you like, that don't you like?
I kind of want us to move on, actually, but comfortable, affordable living. You know, I guess that's a little more, anybody could say that, right?
That upsets me. When I see comfortable, affordable living, it's like when I hear someone here say price, quality, and service, I want to vomit. You know, what's the...
tell us how you really feel.
You know, anyone can say comfortable, anyone can say affordable living. So you got to tell me why. So what this is missing to me is some story. So let's talk about now how to spot that story. Unfortunately, the problem is you're thinking about yourself like, how do I spot the story? So you're thinking and thinking. What we want to share with you is the ultimate story spotting tool. Okay, so here we go. Number one, is it simple? Is your message a simple message, or is it complicated message? Messages that have too many messages. In our previous ad, we saw that there's a lot of simple things in there. It's better to pick one thing and hang your hat on it, and we're going to share how Fireside hangs their hat on cozy and comfortable, right? So now, next, is it surprising? Most ads on a scale of 1 to 10 are like a 1 out of surprising. Look at your materials and say what's surprising, what's not surprising of it. So here's a bit of homework for you. The homework is, by the way, if you are not taking notes, right, and if you are not implementing right now, you're not taking things that you're going to leave here and implement, so you're making mistakes. So one thing that is an important thing to implement is put a star by this. What is in my business that is surprising? What do I know that other people do not know? So I know that Garth is on the call. So Garth, what do you know about debt that other people don't know? Other people probably don't know that you can extend your outdoor living space. They probably don't know what you can do to the value of their home. Okay, next is what we call your PUBA, a promise of an overt benefit. So this is your grand PUBA. What is a PUBA? You're in business to make a promise and fulfill on a promise. If you make a promise, it's a quid pro quo. You make a promise and then you fulfill on the promise. So after you make that promise, is it an overt promise? In the ad that we just saw, it was comfortable and it was affordable. But is that your big promise? Where is your promise? The bigger and the bolder the promise you can get. You know, LifeLock puts out a promise. We guarantee you can't knock me off. And so we'll put out, let me give you my social security number. You can't even hack into my account. By the way, they did. But it's a big, bold promise. We're going to talk a little bit more about promises soon. Then, if you do make a promise, are they going to believe you? Most people believe you about as far as they can throw you. So now, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get people to believe you, because most people don't believe you. And number 5 is you demonstrate a big zig. If everyone else is zagging, how are you going to zig? How are you dramatically different from everybody else that's in the market? So in construction, we're going to touch this as well, some things that are dramatically different, some things that are the same. And finally, what everybody blows is the emotional story. Most people don't tell a story. They don't take the time to elucidate what's going on in someone's mind and the pain and frustration that you have. If you're trying to get a bid, if you're trying to send a bid, and the pain and frustration of having different bids and having people not show up on time and having a contractor say one thing and do another and have someone not return your call and have this guy with plumber crack on the hanging out the back of his pants, when you take the time to slow down and tell those emotional stories, you will engage people. Okay, so let's take a look at our ad again. So did we do it here? This is an ad for Fireside. So is it simple? What do you say, Kyle?
I think so.
It's simple? Okay. So
little wordy, right? A little wordy, but not bad.
A little wordy, but it's good. So is it a surprising message? What's surprising about it?
Headline: a money-back satisfaction guarantee from a builder. It's unheard of, but it's what we do. Interesting.
Right. Good.
Really surprising. This 4,000 square foot home had utility bills of just $240 over the last 12 months. Ask us how.
So is that $240 per month or total?
That's total.
Right. That's surprising. And the headline does a great job of guarantee from a builder. You know, the purpose, everything you do, by the way, write this down, everything you do should have a headline. So any ad, any letter should have a headline. And the whole purpose, what's the whole purpose of the headline, Kyle?
Catch their attention.
And,
interrupt.
And get them to read the
copy.
Subhead, right.
Subhead.
If you can get them to read the subhead and then the first 50 words, then you're in like Flynn. So you want to be able to get a person to just kind of go through your headline, then down through your copy, and you want to have like a Z-flow. So this does a good job with the Z-flow, where it starts at the top left, goes down to the 4,000 feet, then goes over to the left. So I think it's good. The layout is a little bit challenging because it's kind of blocky, and so all those different, the flow of the layout is clean, but a little bit challenging to read. But the copy is excellent. Now,
I think go ahead if you want to keep tweaking it, but I wouldn't mind. I think we got our main point there. You want to scoot through just so that we have.
Yep, let's keep going.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Don't want to cut it off, but I did. So how do you find your story? So why don't you share this?
Yeah. So this is cool. Now these guys are kind of amazing. They were like a couple of brothers, and they weren't quite sure. Craig and Chris Ziegler. They weren't quite sure how do they share their story. They were the same as everyone else, and they were competing against guys. And so what we did in the next page was we targeted their hungry fish, and we found their hungry fish was in these small, inexpensive penny newspapers. And we said, oh, my nephew Colin has been diagnosed with autism, Craig Ziegler says. I want to help him any way I can. So he starts telling his personal story. And then we put in testimonials. Oh, I really appreciate the fact that they specialize in beautiful lawns. I'll put my yard up against anyone's in our neighborhood. It looks that good, and I recommend them. So we wove in testimonials. And then we'd have people, remember we talked about envision yourself? So how do you envision yourself? I enjoy sitting outside with my dogs and never worry about any of the treatments hurting my animals. All in all, ALO is second to none. So they said, I'm imagining myself with a dog and sitting in my front yard, and also I'm one of those people I'm worried about chemicals. So what was the results in doing this simple ad? In about 4 months, they had 800, before we started working with them, they had 864 customers. In 4 months, they had 1,050 customers. Not just that, let's take a look at sales. So their sales before was $426,000. In 4 months, $612,000. And so what's that look like? So in 4 months, essentially, that's a 30% increase, and they spent about $1,000 and made $186,000. So that's the power of being able to spot your story, even small business, and take the time to share it. It's really quite powerful when you do. But that's not enough to tell your story. So we've got our hungry fish, and we have identified a story, but now we have a question is, how do we roll it out? So that brings us to step number 3.
Yeah, so step number 3, next stepping. So here's a, how do we build a next stepping machine? So John, why don't you do this illustration, then I'll take over.
Well, you have to look at it as a three-part funnel. The top of the end of your funnel is your lead generation, and then from lead generation, you have lead development. So in other words, you have to have a database. You have to have what we call hand-raising offer. You got to get a person to raise their hand for something, so they could raise their hand for free information, free stuff, and then you develop it, and then you convert them. Now, once you convert them, you now need to deliver on that promise. So you've got 2 parts of your promise fulfillment. You have promise fulfillment, you have customer service, and then you also have operations. So that's kind of making your promise good. And if you do that well, then you've got referrals. And what happens to referrals? Whenever you get a new referral, because you have a system, it goes all the way right back into the top, and it goes right back into the funnel at the beginning of lead generation. And that becomes a business which is a growable asset and something that you can move forward with.
There's so often, if I talk to maybe some of you guys would be able to on the phone, but let's say you're a remodeler, and if I walked up to you and said, okay, my wife and I did a wonderful kitchen remodel with you, and we spent about 50 grand with you about 2 years ago, and since that job is done, have I heard from you? And sometimes when I ask that question, I have one guy say, oh, that's rude, isn't it? You know, basically saying, oh, wow, I haven't reached out at all. There is so much potential and so much brilliance that comes from staying in touch and continuing to nurture not only your previous clients, but how many people are in your list of did proposal for, haven't signed. Especially in this marketplace right now, it's my opinion, I'm seeing it out there proven, that there's a lot of projects that people are not necessarily going with somebody else for, but they're just holding on to them. We're not quite ready yet. I know all of you can relate to that. And are you the person that is staying and nurturing with those prospects and continuing to build some know, like, and trust and continuing to stay in front of them? Or are you somebody that is, boy, I just need to move on to the next lead, next lead, next lead, right? So the holy grail of business growth is, John?
Nurturing.
Nurturing. You made me answer questions. I gave you an easy one. You gave me a sub copy. I mean, geez, come on, John. All right, so the holy grail of business growth is nurturing.
Kind of funny coming from a Jewish guy, right?
That is true. Yes, you are in fact. Oh, that's a deep joke right there. Okay, let everybody process that, and let's move on. So, what is the typical response rate? So here's a stat, and I know, John, you use this a lot of your talks. Some of you may have seen this, whether it's from John or it's just known facts. So how many contacts do you need? The percentage of sales made after 1 contact is 2%, 2 contacts 4%, and so on, right? Up to the 5th contact is when you get 81% of business. So the percentage of businesses that give up after the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd time, right? 3rd contact is 90%. So 10% of the businesses get 81% of the sales. John, do you want to add to that? It's pretty straight up, right?
The good news is that most people give up. I think it's kind of mind-blowing. So let's take what does that look like visually?
There you go.
So this is where most people blow it. They don't realize, they don't have the stick-to-itness. They're not willing to say, oh, look, I tried it once, marketing doesn't work. Oh, I tried the 2nd time, the 3rd time, the 4th time. Most do not have the discipline and the rigor to be able to stick it out. Because look at that, at the 5th contact, that's where the big turnaround is. And you guys have dogs, right? So if you have a dog, you're like, lay down, boy. Come on, lay down, boy. Come on, lay down, boy. Lay down. Good dog. Sometimes you kind of have to repeat yourself a little bit.
So my wife's allergic to dogs, so when we got married, we just started having kids. But the same illustration can go for kids here, right? There we go. Okay. So the kicker here is, so one thing, I guess what we're emphasizing here is the importance of staying in touch, of nurturing. So whether that means you guys look up the some done for you or already in the industry specific stay in touch programs, whether it's Improve It 360, Market Sharp, there's ones like that. Maybe you go with Infusionsoft or Act. Having a database and having that data in a system so that perhaps some of it you can automate is extremely, extremely important. That is another 1-hour webinar topic, but hopefully that illustrates the point a little bit. So here's one of John and I's clients, gentleman named Andy Haste in Indiana. And Andy had talked about for years and years, boy, I should just put together a simple email newsletter so that at least that part of things can be in place. Send out a monthly newsletter, have some testimonials, have an interesting or just informative article, stay in touch, keep my name, keep my face out there, and by golly, Andy did it, right? So I skipped over a slide earlier of take action, right? We're covering a lot of stuff, but it's a matter of taking action, and there's a lot of resources that John and I will make available to you here at the end, and hopefully some templates that you're going to get your hands on that you can grab and implement quickly. Show appreciation. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say when it comes to newsletters, so most people that do a regular touch to their clients, if you paid them to stop doing it, if they do it well, they'd fight you with tooth and nail. And our weekly e-letter that many of you get comes out every Friday, and we've been doing it for over 3 years. You couldn't pay me to stop that. We have made 6 figures, 7 figures from that e-letter alone. And we never sell in it either. We just nurture, nurture, nurture. And in doing that, then it becomes like whack-a-mole because you've nurtured them. So I don't want to say any more about it, but that's the most powerful thing.
How was your complaining streak going, John?
I did it. I did it. It took me 4 months to go 21 days without complaining.
And, well, that's pretty good, right? Okay. See, I read your Friday.
I appreciate that.
There you go. And I'm guessing that if we unmuted the phones, people would be chuckling right now because they've read that story as well. All right. So show appreciation. Say thank you. Whether that is simply, I put up a fleece blanket. Whether that's bringing that over around Christmas time. Whether that's, sending mugs. Name some of the things, John. The things you can be sending out just to say thank you.
Well, let's talk about this particular thing. This particular one, although this one is for Central New Jersey, there's one that we used for Fireside because the main message for Fireside was warm and cozy. And so therefore the gift was representative of who they are. So if you're in skylight business, so it should have some sort of light, right, Dennis? Or if you're in the carpeting business, so it should have something about flooring or cleaning your flooring or a Swiffer or something that is going to be appropriate for driving home your message. And so that's what I think is one of the most important things, and something that is personal and not necessarily used with your product.
Cool. Let's keep cruising. So the theory, what's behind this phenomenon of giving gifts, of saying thank you, is reciprocity, right? The fact that the more you give, the more people will feel that they need to give back. That's the definition, right, John?
Oh, yeah. You can't, everybody feels obligated when they get something for free, and so you can't go wrong by doing that.
All right, moving forward. Step 4, irresistible bait. There's some chocolate. Frankly, right now, after Halloween and after all the candy, that bait is not that attractive to me.
Well, it's because you're not a woman. Right, Julie?
Okay. Yeah. That could be. Careful now. Okay.
Women love chocolate.
Well, so do I, frankly. So moving on. So irresistible bait. So, here's a little illustration. Wow, even animation. How about that? So there's a lot of people that may be coming to your website, may be looking at your ads, and maybe those people are ready to buy now. Oh, boy, we love them. As far as a CTA, a call to action, we need to, offer to come on in, right? Come on down. We'll serve you. But there are so many people out there, especially now more than ever, that are researching. I mean, if they're doing a nice remodeling project or, like you mentioned, skylights, floors, garages, etc., decks, they're researching, and they might be 2 years away from it. And the theory here, this irresistible bait, wouldn't you want to start to build a relationship with those people that are researching, whether it's a year or 2 years or 5 years away? Wouldn't you want to start building a relationship with them, starting to build some know, like, and trust, starting to tell them what makes you different, who you are?
Oh, hold on. What was that? What you said? Know, like, and trust. That is a writer down, and that was a gem that Kyle just threw out there like flying through. Those are 3 very powerful words that are worth writing down. How do I get people to know, like, and trust me? Those are 3 elements, and you have to ask yourself, what am I doing in all 3 of those realms?
Yes, indeed. So what can you give away that is free and valuable? So this irresistible bait. So here's just a few little examples. So here's an example from a gentleman named Bill Simone. He's out in California. Want to avoid a remodeling nightmare? Learn the 6 secrets to successful remodeling. Avoid the costly mistake that many remodelers make. So he's capturing some leads there. Here's our friend Bob, who's doing educational homeowner seminars. So this is another thing, I think, with the architect program. This is probably the second biggest thing that is getting results for Bob right now, is doing educational seminars. Are you considering building a new home or doing a major remodel? Consider our seminars first. He's done 8 or 9 of them thus far over the last probably 15 months. We get about 8, 10, 12 people there each time. And he's up there just educating them on the process, the 5 myths of building and remodeling, 8 steps to a successful project. And when those people leave, they're sold on him. That know, like, and trust is being built through that. He's not selling them. It's not a sales pitch. He's just educating them on the process. And frankly, when somebody says, hey, Bob, I'm interested in a project, after they've been to one of the seminars, you can bet that closing percentage is very, very high. Here's a free and valuable report. We talked about the architect program earlier. 7 ways to enhance your services. Here's some educational stuff for you architects, right? If you guys are at all revolving around energy savings, whether it's green or sustainable or just energy savings in general, here's a guy that he has this little booklet. If you go to energybrightoptions.com, it's called Energy Savings for the Novice. And I have several John and I have several clients who have this as kind of their download, as their irresistible bait on their website. In exchange for your name, your address, let us send you this free and valuable book. And it just contains a bunch of good quality information. And now I have their contact information. I'm going to send them some postcards as follow-up. I'm going to continue to build that know, like, and trust. So irresistible bait there. And here's this our kind of stressed out contractor from earlier. What's his name? Mike?
Mike,
yes. But I'm just a remodeler. I'm just a contractor. Can I do that? Well, frankly, there's one of our giveaways. Here's an ebook that says the 10 secrets of remodeling, and you guys can get a little customized copy of that with your name here as your free gift.
Cover. Listen. It still has to. You have to write it and tweak it for yourself.
Come on, John, write it. John will write it for you before he sends it over. What? Hello? Okay. All right. So why don't you
okay, so here's the problem is that now that
I'm respecting people's time. We still have quite a bit to cover here. It's 3:54 according to my clock here in Michigan. We did get a little slow start, but let's cruise.
So we're gonna probably go 5 to maybe 10 minutes over. So if you need to cut out, we'll certainly understand. Although we'll be offering some free things ahead of time for you. If you need to check out ahead of time, so just send us a little text and ask us to send you the free gifts. So what happens here is you hire someone, and then what's this guy do? He decides he's going to leave you. How many times do we hire good people, and they leave us, and they also take some of our employees with them? And so that's what this guy does. And so the question is, when they do that, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you differentiate yourself? Well, there's one thing you could do that oftentimes your new competitors can't and won't do. That's what we'll call risk reversal. If you have the choice of doing business with 2 types of companies, one that will stand behind it and one that won't, so you're always going to go with those that will stand behind it. And because we're in an environment where people don't trust you, so the stronger and more powerful your guarantee, the more that people will actually trust you. But what you need to do is you need to build in what we're going to call the burn factor. Do you know the #1 day that televisions are returned? Can anyone guess? The #1 day that televisions are returned. Go ahead and send in a text. No, it's not New Year's. No, not 4th of July. It is the day after Super Bowl. It's coming up because people, they go and they buy them and then they take advantage and return it.
Now, who's going to be the Super Bowl this year, John? I don't know if you're a big sports fan, but my mighty Detroit Lions are just looking wonderful.
Well, I don't think you're going to have much of a chance because the Ravens are going to totally trump them.
Oh, interesting. I can talk a little smack, saying that we're 0-16 a few years ago. Anyways, didn't I say we need to speed up? Why am I saying that? Carry on.
My point is that you got to have a burn factor, Kyle. You need to have a factor where just assume that people are going to take advantage of you. And if you know that it's okay for some people to take advantage of you, then you're going to be better off. Kind of build it into your cost, and usually, by the way, people don't. Which brings us to a different way of thinking. So a different way of thinking is what we call the big zig. It is some way that's dramatically different than if everyone else is zagging. So what's your big zig? So if everyone else is zagging, how do you zig? If everyone else is going straight, how do you turn yourself? So let's take a couple examples in remodeling how people are actually doing it something different.
Yeah, so there's just a couple quick things. So number one of the powers is when you start to identify what makes you different. I don't know if it's going to be, actually let me start with this. One of the best ways to uncover your big zig and what really makes you different is survey your clients. The people that already, not to bring this up again, know, like, and trust you, but ask them, why did you choose to do business with us in the first place? What do we do that others don't? If there's one word that best describes us, what would it be? Start with that. Start to see if there's some patterns, some things that people really appreciate about the little things you do. Sometimes when you go through that exercise, you sit there and go, really? That's what makes us different in your eyes? That's what you're really thrilled with? And sometimes when you go through the exercise, you realize, wow, I'm not really doing anything that's remarkable or that's different, right? But one of the things, go ahead.
I'll bet you $10 that almost nobody's going to take you up on what you just suggested.
Well, really?
Because in order to do that, you have to be willing to go back and talk to past customers and say, hey, what did you like, what didn't you like? Most people are not that forward thinking to look backwards.
I just got off the phone earlier with a client in Connecticut, one of our clients in Connecticut, and he said, it was so interesting, he said one of the newest things that people, he's seen it consistently now, this isn't a remodeling client, this is actually in the IT world, but he said, one of the things I'm getting is people are asking me not for 3 references of current clients, they're asking me for 3 references of clients that have left you, that have left us. And he said, I'm seeing it all the time now, which is really interesting. But back to what you're saying. So, one thing I like to do, once you start to identify what makes you different, put a name to it. Make it tangible. Whether it's the 5 keys of excellence, whether it's a 4-way guarantee, a 5-star promise. But now all of a sudden, people say, what makes you different? Well, when we surveyed our clients, we really thought about who we are and what we're all about. It's about our 5 keys of excellence. Let me tell you about that. Put it on your trucks. Put it on your letterhead. Put it on your website. Now all of a sudden you have a little bit of an identity. Another idea that came from John and I worked with a client of ours out in Colorado, a countdown clock. One of the things they realized is that their clients, their hungry fish, one of the things they really appreciated was they get the job done on time, on schedule. When we say we're going to have the job done on this date, it's done. In fact, they take it a step further, put some teeth into it, and say, our guarantee is that if the job is not done on this date, we will pay you $100 for every day that we go over. Because they've realized that their hungry fish value that and appreciate that. And another little wrinkle we put on it is they have a countdown clock, which basically says, and they use it during the sales process, and then they follow it up when they have the job. They say, this is a way that we illustrate our commitment to you. When we have a kickoff meeting and we decide exactly what this project is going to be done, we'll start the clock, and we'll put this in the space that's being remodeled. And it is a reminder of our commitment to you and vice versa. So a way to illustrate it, right? Like you were talking about earlier, the fleece is not necessarily just a fleece, but it's tied to their message. And in this case, this is tied to one of their big zigs. Okay.
By the way, it also keeps their workers moving along. But the problem that you have here is you're totally overwhelmed. And, you've got to try to manage your workers. You've got to try to manage budgets. You've got to try to deal with insurance. And you're trying to be creative. And so the question is, how are you going to possibly get all this done? Now you have what we call the devil. Let's take a look at this devil. Maybe you recognize this guy. This guy, he is the salesperson. He's selling you Yellow Pages. He's selling you search engine optimization. He's selling you websites. He's selling you conferences. He's selling you all sorts of things that you may or may not need. But the problem...
Hey, John, can you get me on the first page of Google?
Yes, we can get you on the first page of Google, yes. Guaranteed.
Yes. Right?
For only $297 a month, we'll get you on the first page of Google in the first 5 listings, right? So the question is, but what matters most? So let's talk about the deepest elements of what matters most. Getting people to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah,
and
so
that brings us to our final thing here, which is reason to believe.
Second to final thing.
Well, this is the last educational point in the commercial process. Reason to believe. Most people are not going to believe you. So there are 3 ways to get people to believe you. We're only going to cover one of them today. 3 ways to get them to believe you. Number 1 is through research. Number 2 is through testimonials. And number 3 is through demonstration. So let's take a look. Kind of go back one more.
Yeah.
So let's take a look now at some different ways that you can get testimonials. Go ahead.
Yeah, so testimonials. So, one thing that we often do is number 1, when you hear testimonials, it's usually written, which written is good, and we'll show you a sample of that. Written is good, and John preaches a lot of his materials about the fact that your clients are willing to work with you on your testimonial. Number one, they lie to you and say they're going to send you the testimonial when they don't. But number two, if you've identified the key things that make you different, they are willing to shape their testimonial. They're not going to make things up, but they're willing to shape it to highlight the real key points of difference. The other thing I'd push you guys to do, and one resource that we have available for you, is an audio testimonial line. We're happy to set this up, and it's a really cool, simple system for collecting audio testimonials. The client simply calls this number, enters the PIN, and it's as simple as leaving a voicemail. And what happens when you start to collect audio testimonials, when you start to maybe even take it a step further and bust out a little flip video camera or some simple video camera and get some video testimonials, is when you capture it in audio and video, it's so much more authentic, transparent, and real. So I'd urge you guys to consider that. Take pictures of your clients, your smiling clients in the space that you're modeling in their new deck or in their new etc. Right? Don't be afraid of doing that. Here's an ordinary testimony. Manchester Remodeling was great to work with. MR. Well,
yuck.
Yati-da, right?
That is so vague, and that is so lame. And who the heck is MR?
Yes.
Here's
something.
What's an extraordinary testimony look like?
Yes,
so remember we said a headline for everything? Yep. Look at the word headline here. See this headline, it overcomes objections. So one other piece of homework that you need to leave here today with is write down the top 5 objections that people have to doing business with you. And then go back and get your previous customers to overcome those objections. And then you got pictures in there. And finally, the last thing you have in there is real names and real places. So that brings us to what we did today. So what we want to do is break through. The final thing is to take action and not have a glorified job. So how are we going to not have a glorified job anymore where we don't have this vicious cycle? The vicious cycle where you don't have enough money and you can't hire and you can't invest in growth and you don't have enough sales. The quickest and easiest way to break through that cycle is to start to make your business an asset. An asset is something that's both works on the long term and the short term. It's something that provides value to you as the owner, as well as to your team, as well as to your customers. That's a compelling company. And the thing that's going to hold most people back is accountability. Most people in the remodeling construction world are not accountable to anybody. So this is going to come as a shock to many of you, but I have written a check to the American Nazi Party. Hold on, don't hang up just yet. Why did I write a check to the American Nazi Party? What's Goldman doing, writing a check to the Nazi Party? Had a client that need to make a change in his business and his life. And I said to him, you got to make a change. And if you don't make a change, I'm going to send this check to the Nazi Party, and so are you. And so he needed to do some stuff with it, with being home on time, and he needed to change his business a bit. And in doing so, if he was successful, he had a kid with cerebral palsy, and I told him that I would send a check to the United Cerebral Palsy of New Jersey if he did it. If he didn't, then we were going to send a check to the Nazi Party. Do you think he was successful? Yes or yes? Totally. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I am not sending a check to the Nazi Party because what happens here, exactly what happened is what we call rubber band syndrome. People get very excited and they get very stretched out. Today we recovered several different things. We spoke about having irresistible bait. We talked about hungry fish. We spoke about having a system. We spoke about telling this story and how to spot the story. We spoke about nurturing people and developing your list. And then finally we spoke about having a big zig and having testimonials. But you are not going to do it. And so therefore the question is, what can you do to take responsibility and not stretch out and not revert back? So that brings us to the Red Wings.
There you go. Yeah, so here's kind of a sample of this. So to maybe another illustration of this that's not as troubling as the Nazi Party one, right? So I was clicking, this is probably a year and a half ago, and I'm a big sports fan, not the biggest Red Wings or hockey guy or baseball fan, but the Red Wings beat this team, was actually Columbus Blue Jackets, 9-1. And being the marketing nerd I am, I said, wow, there's a marketing story here. And here's what it is. In your remodeling and your contracting business, there are projects that you win 9-1, where you just blow the competition away. Right? Who are those? Those are probably maybe your mom, right? If your mom comes and says, hey, I need to catch your mom, I'm hoping you're going to blow out the competition, right? Or previous clients, right? People that already know, like, and trust you, experience. Like, the kicker is that those previous clients where it used to be a 9-to-1 win, I've seen those turn into more 7-to-3 games, right? Not quite a slam dunk. But there are so many projects, so many homeowners that you're talking to that you're either winning that game, i.e. the project, 5-4, or you're losing it 5-4. And in my experience and what John has seen and just what's proven itself time and time again is that the difference between winning those close games and losing them are the little things. Man, I wish I would have explained what makes this different better. Wow, I should have followed up with them more. Wow, I should have thanked them for this. Wow, I should have had more compelling testimonials. All these little things are what really can elevate your business into the next level, you know, that proverbial next level. But just little things are what can make a huge difference, right? So you want to share this real quick, John?
Well, the question is, does it work? The things that we're speaking about. This one is right off the presses. So this is Mitch Lazar. So Mitch was putting about $50,000 a week in estimates out, and in a few short months, he's now putting out $500,000 of $500,000 a week in estimates. That's a 10-time growth by little things. And what we did is there are about 7 different levers that we shared with you. By pulling each of these levers just a bit, then what happens is you not only increase 10%, but you can increase by 10 times. One of the particular levels that we did here was focus on referrals and finding that referral partner, the few people that can make such a big difference in your life. And in doing that, in pulling some of these other levers, just like there's a graphic equalizer, if you pull these levers, you crank it up not just a little bit, by 10 times. Okay, so let's wrap up here, Carl.
Yep, so wrap up. Next to that, number 4 that we did the start. So we looked at number 1. You know, what is your biggest marketing challenge? Number 2, you know, living with this problem uncorrected. This costs me this much, you know, in revenue that I will never see. What is my priority to fix it? And next to number 4, I want you to simply write yes or no. Yes. After hearing what I heard, I'd love to take you guys up on some of the free bonuses. And here's some of those bonuses, ebooks and whatnot. And also a free quick start with John. There's a project discovery sheet. There's a what to expect at our first meeting. There's audio testimonial line. Various resources.
Let's just talk about this for just a minute here. This is, if you guys want all this stuff that we're talking about, this project discovery sheet is an unbelievably powerful, insightful process. We spoke about lead generation, lead development, lead conversion. These questions can literally produce extra tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars for your business when you have the right questions, so you can get the right answers. And questions are, in fact, the answers. And then also this process of what to expect at our first meeting. And then also the audio testimonial line. That makes it so easy to capture. Once you start capturing more audio testimonials, then you'll get to more video testimonials, and you'll get to more growth of your business.
So what you're saying is that stuff's more exciting than that picture of you leaning up against a watermelon?
So many people here, many people here have received that. If you haven't received any of those materials that we'll send them to you, then, and the last thing is, if anyone, I'll throw one more thing in here because, I don't know, we'll call it in honor of your new child.
There you go.
We have a special report that we've created, how to work a little and make a lot. It's how do you work less? And I think that that's the ultimate currency today, is how do you actually work less and make more money? And that comes from shifting your thinking. So if you'd like this stuff, so just say free pack. You don't have to say anything more than the word free. And write email to info@brandlauncher.com, and just email it to info@brandlauncher.com and put the word free in there. We'll know exactly what you mean. And put in the, or you can call us here at 410-235-7070. I hope that you'll leave today, by the time we're done with this call, take a few minutes, please, and pick 3 things that you're going to actually do. Not just listen, but actually do. Prioritize them and start to take some action. And we'd like to try to take you through a quick start program. So give us a call and send us an email to see how we might be able to help you grow your business, improve your life, and apply some of these things so you can work less, have more fun, and get more done. And I think we ought to do what Sam Walton said, which is ready, fire, aim. Most people are ready, aim, 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 fire. Isn't it time that we make a difference in our business and our lives and take responsibility for what we're doing? We'd like to help you do that, so I encourage you and invite you to give us a call and drop us an email and take us up on our quick start. This quick start is a unique process. We're going to give you our assessment program, and the assessment is a free assessment that we charge quite a bit of money for. So this assessment will give you the direction that you're looking for. I want to thank you for the time, Carl. I'm sorry for calling you Carl so many times. I want to thank you for.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
No problem. I want to thank you for your contribution today, Kyle, and your insight and your experience. Kyle is, if you like working with Kyle, so you'll have an opportunity to do so. Kyle's made a tremendous difference for many of our clients, and we'd be happy to give you a chance to meet and work with Kyle as well. I want to thank you guys for your attention today, and I wish you to be able to bring out the best in yourselves and in your team.